Central New York, and hello, hockey fans all across the internet, and welcome to 315 Hockey Live, brought to you by 315hockey.com and powered by My Little Falls. I'm your host, Scott Kinville, and you know, Dave, this is the most wonderful time of the year.
Is it snowing again?
Well, it did the other day, but
no, it was snowing earlier.
Oh yeah, well, see, there you go.
See, it's Christmas.
Exactly. All over again. Yes. Yeah. But no, really, we got it's college tournament time.
Oh yes.
And there's a lot going on in Central New York because we got a lot of teams that have made postseason tournament play. And I'm going to tell you something right now. It's exciting. It's so exciting.
Doesn't take much to excite you, though.
Listen, I take pride in that. But anyways,
just put a bobblehead in front of you. You're good.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The Dave the Save bobblehead.
Yeah, exactly.
We still got to make that, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
But anyways, we're getting sidetracked already. We don't need to get sidetracked because we got a lot to get to tonight. We're going to be covering the UCHC, the NESCAC, the SUNYAC, the New HL, Colgate Raiders women, and the Syracuse Orange women's tournament appearances. And to help us do that, we have got Chris Sugar from the D3 Hockey News. Now, the D3 Hockey News is the source for everything D3 hockey, and I'm so glad to have him back on. Chris, how are you?
I'm good. There's sometimes when certain people call or text you, you pick up, whether it's a funeral or anything, and you're one of those people, so I'm here.
Oh, thanks, brother. I appreciate that so much. So how's it going out there?
It's not too bad. We're getting through it. Obviously, we're approaching I guess for me at least, the busiest month of the year, which is going to be March. So it should be interesting.
It's going to be very interesting and busy. That's for sure.
Yes.
Before we dive into our tournament previews here, though, you've had a lot going on. You've got your new show, The Full 60, which, my man, is awesome, by the way.
I appreciate that a lot. It wasn't my idea. It was my friend John's who does all the video and camera work. I'm just on there. But he had the idea and we tried to do it and it worked out pretty good. It's what helps us is we started out with Elmira and then Geneseo, and the two of them are nice enough. They just let us, they're like pretty much just do whatever you want. There were no like real rules or anything. They're just like, look, just film whatever you want, go wherever you want. It's up to you. So that made it a lot easier than if we were in a place where there were kind of some limitations set.
Right. A lot of free roaming going on.
Pretty much, yeah.
And you also just wrapped up the second annual Broadcaster Bracket Challenge. How'd that go?
It was a lot more organized this year because there was organization, unlike last year where it was kind of thrown together the last second. Like this year, I mean, this is going to sound like simple stuff, but I didn't have it last year. Just kind of had everything sorted into folders on SD card, all the files, and I could just post them up. There you go. Twitter Blue, say what you want about paying for a check. I did it for a couple months because I needed this for the media clips because then I could post larger media files, which just made everything easier. So no, it went well. Kevin Haas of Northland won it this year. I don't know how, but he did. Congrats to him. And I don't say that rudely. He's a great broadcaster, but the school's total enrollment is 531. And
wow.
He got more votes every round pretty much except for, I think except for like the first two, which obviously because there's a lot going on, you're going to get less votes. But once the final rounds kind of hit, he was getting more than the enrollment within a couple hours. So that was kind of cool to see. It was fun to see.
The big time voter turnout. You got to love it.
Exactly. And especially it was kind of cool just to see because like the team they put together, I had up in the account a little bit, the SID and some of the coaches, they put together like a mini video of like some of the players, coaches, and men's and women's teams, kind of like saying, vote Kevin or whatever, and they put it up. And that was pretty cool. And there were some other stories that going on with just some schools really advertising or promoting it. Like that's the side I don't get to see. I just hear about it. So that's kind of cool, seeing how like much it helps promote the broadcasters, just like you have random people at school just walking up you like, oh, hey, I hope you win. I made a Twitter because of you or whatever. So that stuff's kind of cool to me.
That's really awesome. And I'll tell you, there's another thing that you've been doing that I love. You've been getting out these stickers to the college teams, and they've been putting them on their helmets. Tell us a little bit about that.
So it started the stickers. I had them a while back, but the goalie helmet idea started. I'll say it now because he's actually on a team now. Anthony Del Tufo at Salve Regina. He was a Plattsburgh transfer, and then he played some club at Oswego, and now he's at Salve this year, doing really well for the team. He was kind of thrown into the mix with an Elmira and Hobart the first weekend. So that's quite the test. But it was his idea at first. He had said, he's like, hey, I'll throw one of these on my helmet at the next spot I'm at, because I didn't meet him really until he started transferring. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm like, I'll give you one. And then he said, you should ask other goalies to do it. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, they do it. And I'm like, all right. So I asked, the two that I knew well, like Luca Durante, Matt Petesian of Cortland and Geneseo, and they were all like, oh yeah, I'll do it. They're like, you should ask some others. And I'm like, all right. So then, I posted that some of them were doing it. Then once I did that, there were some coaches that would reach out. They're like, hey, I want all the goalies to wear them. Can you send them to me? And I'm like, yeah, like I think the first team, Brockport, might have been the first team for all the helmets, and then Plattsburgh, and then a lot more just kind of funneled through. I appreciate them all. And then Cortland, actually, Joe Cardarelli, their coach, he had said he wants them for the whole team. And I'm like, I didn't know you could do that. So I had to get them kind of figured out and get smaller ones. And so seeing that was unbelievable. It's just crazy to see like a whole team with it on.
Yeah.
And then as of late, Morrisville, at the tail end of their season, but I still appreciate the hell out of it. I mean, what they did, the support of it. So they put them on there too. So just stuff like that. It's cool because you could see it in person. It's not like just seeing numbers. You see a physical, like what you've been able to do and kind of create, and people supporting it.
Yeah, that is, it's so awesome. I sent you that picture there. I got Chris Mott, who was on the show a few weeks ago. I didn't even realize it at first. And then I zoomed in. I'm like, there it is. It's there. I'm like, that's awesome. So
People like swag.
yeah, right.
They're even looking at what you wear.
Barry says he loves the shirt. We are definitely gonna be talking about that shirt in segment 2 for sure. Absolutely. But you know what, Chris? We're here to talk some tournament previews. So why don't we start with the UCHC? And we're going to start with the men's side. So in this area, the number 1 ranked Utica Pioneers men's team is all the rage. Well-deserved. Their record overall is 22-2-1. The record in the UCH is a perfect 20-0-0. They're the number 1 seed in the UCHC. Goals per game, they're at 5.6. Goals against per game, they're 1.9. The power play is 25.2%. The PK is 84.8%. Their first round opponent tomorrow, they are hosting Arcadia, and then to be determined, of course, Saturday and Sunday, or March 4th after that. So your impressions of the Utica Pioneers men's team?
Obviously, they've looked good. I mean, they had that close one kind of against Alvernia. I think they were down 1-0 going into the third, I believe.
Yes.
And so then they kind of just finally got through. I didn't see the game, but clearly the goalie played out of his mind if that was the case, because the shots were heavily in favor of Utica. So there's that. I mean, they've looked good. I think it's going to be, and this is nothing against Utica, I just think it's going to be tough for them because it's no fault of their own. I mean, just the league isn't up to par with some of the other leagues from top to bottom. So I think it's kind of tough to really see the true Utica. I mean, like you had, Oswego middle of the year. That was really, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, I think the last real ranked
that was the last ranked team. Yes.
Yeah, so you've got that, and Adrian at the beginning of the year, obviously it's good to play him, but you don't learn a ton first weekend of the year. It's just
right.
Whether you like Adrian beating Utica 8-3, okay, if they play today, that's probably not going to happen.
Right.
It's just so like the 4-3. I think it was 4-3 overtime game. That's more like how the game will probably go now. So
right.
It's
right.
which could have gone anyway at that point. But I think it's interesting. I think they're going to roll the UCHC the tournament. I don't, no insult to anybody. I just don't think anybody can hang with them for 3 periods in that conference, except possibly Stevenson, if they can maybe rough it up, or maybe a Wilkes can get hot. I don't know, but I think they'll take it.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that about the schedule, because even Coach Heenan mentioned that on our show a couple weeks ago, saying, and obviously it's nobody's fault. It's just the way that it is. But, it can be tough when you don't play a lot of ranked teams. And then you get into, say, the NCAAs, and it's like, okay, now you're playing the cream of the crop. Now we got to see what we got. You're right. The offense just tends to overwhelm everybody. The thing I noticed about them is, and like you said, Adrian, I mean, that was, okay, you lost your first 2 games, but this season, the Pioneers seem to get better after that. Of course, obviously they did. Oh, yeah. But when I say that, they played Stevenson next in their next series. And there was 2 overtime games there that they won, but they were really close games, which a lot of people weren't expecting. Like, whoa, this is what's happening to Pioneers hockey. And then all of a sudden they started turning on, and I noticed it in the Chatham series, because Chatham came in as one of the better defensive teams and not only just the UCHC, but really Division III. They're a really good defensive team. And that's when you finally started seeing that fire wagon offense take effect. And they blew Chatham out of the building in both games. And then from there, they just got stronger and stronger and stronger. Getting Justin Allen back helped, getting Kimball Johnson back helped. And right now they are just completely on a roll.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Chatham actually had a pretty good year this year in terms of I think they set, I don't think it's a record, but I think they're near it. I mean, because they finished a lot better than they did in the past couple of years. I know that. And so, they've been having a decent year. And even Nazareth, they were the Nazareth series I thought was interesting because the way Nazareth was playing and their record, you're kind of like, oh, maybe they'll give them a little run, and then Utica just blows them out the water. And it's like, okay, well, maybe, what was that? So
right.
It's kind of again, I think it's just weird because like I remember actually listening to part of your talk with Coach Heating where he was like, you need to kind of make, and this is it's all, but statistically a bottom 10 team, you need to make it feel like you're playing a top 10 team. I think he said.
Yes.
And it's true. You can't get lazy, but it's real hard to replicate it. Would say, for example, the SUNYAC, you've got, 3 teams that can make the tournament any year. Cortland's having a great year this year. So I consider that a very, kind of borderline, if you want to call it an upper tier opponent. So it's like you get that constant competition versus the UCHC. It kind of just depends on the year. It's getting better. Just this year, it's not going to compare to, let's say, the NCHA, with Adrian, Norbert, and everybody else.
Right. And, just to wrap up with that, too, the power play started kind of slow this season for the Pioneers, which was very uncharacteristic.
I saw that.
But now they're up to 25.2. They're clicking. So that's going to help, too. Before we go on to the women, is there anything that could possibly trip the men up?
I think, this is going to kind of sound obvious, but I think if you get a goalie that kind of just stands on his head the whole game, if you get when they were trailing Alvernia, 1-0 in the third, it's kind of like you're kind of just waiting for the floodgates to open, which they eventually did. But you're just kind of waiting to see, let's just say they get a second. It's like, what happens? A bounce happens. It's not like you have this big lead in the third. So I think if Wilkes has been playing really good down the stretch. They had a tough tie. I think it was with Newman the other day, but you're going to have those games. But for the most part, they had a streak of, it was 7 or 8 unbeaten, which they started out kind of rough. And then Stevenson's they always play him tough. So, that anything could happen with that game.
Sure.
So Stevenson, but no, we'll see. I think it's probably just goaltending and just maybe some bounces that can trip them up. But otherwise, I just think the skill level's too high.
Yeah, I think so too. It's a wagon right now. All right. So let's go over to the women's side. The number 12 ranked Utica Women's Pioneers. Let's see. So overall, they are 22-3. In the conference, they are 17-1-2. They're the second seed in the UCHC tournament. They are, 4.8 goals per game, 0.9 goals against per game. The power play is clicking along at 26.3%. The PK is at 91.4%. Tomorrow night, they host Lebanon Valley at 3:00 at the Nexus Center. And then, of course, to be determined on Saturday and on March 4th. So your thoughts on the Utica Pioneers women's team?
I hope that I wanted them. This is nothing against Nazareth. I like Nazareth. But I wanted them to win the tournament or the regular season, just because they hadn't before. They were just playing so good. It's kind of like they'd just be kind of, I guess just fun to see a UCHC in the Nexus in the new building. It's just kind of a fun thing. But I think I want to lean Nazareth on it to win the conference championship, just because I think it's in Nazareth. I think if it was in Utica, I would say I think Utica. I just think the home ice will play something. And then in Nazareth, they've been there. Utica, unfortunately, they haven't been in that type of situation, going to the tournament or winning that type of game. And I think that could play a role in it, but the teams are dead even. It's not, I think the one game tied, the other one went to a shootout. So it's not like they're
right.
Or a loss in overtime. Was it?
It was the first game went to the shootout, and then the second game was a loss.
Okay, I knew one of the two combos happened. So the teams are dead even. I think it's home ice, but I think Nazareth can do it. But again, I always kind of live by the theory of beating a team 3 times is really difficult, and especially when you're that even. So that falls into play. So it's almost a toss up, to be honest. But I'd probably lead Nazareth just because of home ice, honestly.
Right. Well, and you know what, too? The women's team is very similar to the men's team, where that offense will just overwhelm you. They will pour shots on goal. That top line they got Carly Stefanini, Erica Sloan, and Georgie Santulo. I mean, they're unbelievable. A lot of strength from the goal from the blue line. And I'll tell you, Angela Hawthorne has proven herself to be one of the best goalies in Division III, hands down.
She's been a top 5, top 6 goalie this year.
Absolutely. And, I mean, of course, I've seen a lot of Pioneers games, but I mean, she's just been unbelievable. And so, yeah, you're right. I mean, that's going to be it probably will come down to Nazareth and Utica again. But let me ask you something. Is there another team in this tournament that can surprise?
I think it's weird. Like Manhattanville, I think is kind of streaky. I haven't seen their games, but I've seen obviously the results and I've had to write about them a decent amount. It seems like they could just play with anybody because they have goal scorers like Gabrielle Cox. I think she's like a top 2 goal scorer in the country. It's like, so obviously, you can have that kind of happen. I'd say maybe them. And I mean, I know that's kind of not like I guess, surprise, like they're the 3rd seed, but I mean, if you compare the points, yeah, they are.
Right,
I think, it's like 50, I think 3 to like 36.
Yeah. Yeah. There's quite a bridge or quite a gap there. So.
Yeah, so there's that. I think they could give them. I think they could give them a run just because they have the offense. I mean, maybe a Chatham. I just don't know if they're there quite yet. But I'd say maybe Manhattanville could trip one of the two up. I would just be shocked. They would need a goalie to play real good if one of those two are going to lose.
Yeah, no doubt. And you know what, too? I just want to make sure that we mention this. Coach Clausen, his daughter, Casey, was a part of the Clinton girls high school team, which won the state championship on Saturday. So way to go, Clinton. That was awesome. It was so good for the girls. It was great. So there it is right there. So we're going to say it's going to be Nazareth and Utica in the final then.
I mean, I don't know how you can go much different at this point. It's they both have shown they're the 2 top teams in the conference by a wide margin in regular season terms.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so why don't we move along to the NESCAC? How does that sound? But this time we're going to flip the script, and we're going to start with the women's side. All right, so we're going to start with the number 6 ranked Hamilton College women. Overall, they are 18-4-2. In the conference, they are 12-3-1. They're the 2nd seed in the NESCAC tournament. Goals per game, they're at 2.7. Goals against per game, 1.2. The power play is at 22%. The penalty kill is 89.8%. Their first round opponent is this Saturday. They host Williams, and then, of course, everything's to be determined after that. This is a very tough team. Chris, what's your thoughts on them?
I think it's the whole NESCAC. It's a weird. I think Hamilton got the best draw out of any of the top teams, if you had to ask me. Just because if you look at Williams, they had their fair share of upsets. I'll call them upsets, and people in the NESCAC might not, but I'll call them upsets just because of the records. Williams, I mean, they beat some good teams, so obviously they could do it. In the NESCAC, anybody can beat anybody. But I think Hamilton can handle them quite well just because they've played top competition all year. I don't think that'll be a big issue, but it'll probably be a close game, but I still think Hamilton will get it done. And then they play the winner of Colby and Trinity. I don't have much stock in Colby, honestly. And again, that's kind of I can go on a rant about the Pairwise for an hour, but that's one of those teams where I don't think they need to show what they can do. They're only playing 22 games this year. They're not really playing much out of conference. In the NESCAC, I think they just went just above 500. And again, it's the NESCAC. I get it, but I don't think their ranking. I think they need to earn more of their ranking before I can say like, oh, this is contender. So I think to me, they got the better draw than say Middlebury or an Amherst. I mean, because they, those two got to play each other, and
right.
Anything could happen to that game. So obviously, and so I think Hamilton has a great shot at the final, and then obviously once you get there, anything happens. But no, I like if you're in terms of Hamilton, I think they got the better draw out of any of the top teams in the league.
Yeah, I mean, and you mentioned their schedule. They played 7 ranked opponents this year, which is obviously good in the long run because that really prepares you for postseason play. Does anybody in that conference have an answer for Nancy Lowe and Abby Coombs, who have been the dynamic duo in Hamilton this year?
I mean, I think if you're going to take, obviously Amherst, I mean, they've shown this year, they've kind of come out of nowhere. I mean, look, obviously they're constantly ranked, but they haven't been this good in some years. And their freshman goaltender, I think she's 20-3 right now. So clearly they are happy for the next 3 years to come. But So I think with her, Amherst, obviously, you know, they're going to give him a run. I mean, I think Colby's going to give him a good game. I don't know what Colby is because they haven't been tested out of conference really. And then in conference, they went just over 500, I think, maybe 2 games over it. And so it's hard to make judge of what they are. And then, but I just think Middlebury or Amherst are the 2 biggest contenders because they're good, you know, they're Middlebury and Amherst.
Right. And they're always
so
there.
Yes. So they're going to have to play one of the 2. It just, you know, depends. I think they're going to get into the tournament regardless, the NCAA tournament. I mean, even if they lost first round, I don't know how they'd get knocked out.
Right.
So they're fine for a bid. That's not the issue. It's just, you know, whether they get a higher or a lower bid at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, in Washington, we're watching Hamilton College play. I mean, they just kind of smother you. You know, that forecheck is just vicious. It really is. And it's almost like they just take the air right out of the game on an opponent. And I do want to say too, like with the NESCAC, they have some of the coolest names ever in that conference. Yeah. I don't know. It's just something about it, right? You got the mammoths, you got the mules, you got the camels, the Fs. I love it. It's just so cool. I mean, it's
Barnyard rats.
No. That's gonna be the conference that you start. Okay.
Yeah. You heard about that, Chris, right? I'm starting that new conference.
Oh, really? I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Dave's all over it. And that's oh boy. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we switch over to the men's side then? The Hamilton College, I got my old school type of notes here. So all handwritten, by the way. You know,
Chrissy has a laptop in front of him, yet he uses paper.
I know, right?
I prefer handwritten notes. I got to be honest. I really do.
Thank you very much.
I'm not saying that just because you just got. I think it's more convenient. I don't have to go through the loading screen. I have to swipe up. If I get a call, it's not going to interrupt the thing. I can just pick it up. Here you go. There you go.
Yeah. See, Dave.
Okay.
And I'm the young one here.
Yeah,
I'm saying that. Typically, it'd be the opposite.
That's true.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm all into the tech, Chris.
Yeah.
I can see.
You have no idea. No, you can't.
If you ever see this studio someday, you'll just be, he's launching space shuttles out of here and everything else. It's
I can show him.
Yeah. But let's go to those Hamilton College men. So the record overall is 13-9-2. Record in the conference is 11-5-2. There's the 4th seed in the NESCAC tournament. Goals per game is 2.8. Goals against per game is 2.3. The power play is at 15%. Their penalty kill is 85.7%. They host Colby in the first round. That's on Saturday. And then, of course, March 4th and March 5th will be determined. So your thoughts on the Hamilton College men's continental team?
I mean, at this point, I think in the NESCAC, I think on the men's side, it's wide open. I mean, same thing the women's side is just loaded with top teams. So that's what makes that wide open. I mean, the men's side, I don't think many saw Wesleyan winning the thing. I mean, I didn't.
No, not at all.
And, you have Trinity they got off to kind of a rough start and then they made a charge at the end. And then, Wesleyan beat twice. And it's like, okay. And then you even see Tufts. I think they had a string of 3 games. Did they beat Hamilton, one of them?
No, they did not.
Who was
it was Tufts. Matter of fact, let me look at the scoreboard here. Actually, it says, now I'm going to use the computer. Yeah. So now we're
you cheater, you.
Now we're going with technology, guys. All right. So
because I'm looking here. Yeah. So they did. They beat Amherst, Hamilton, Bowdoin, and
they did. Okay, you're right.
To end the year, and I'm like, I don't think many saw that.
No.
So it's like, Tufts just comes out of the blue. And I was looking, I thought the score, because occasionally the scoreboard will be like, say at USCHO, they'll have an arrow be flipped. I thought it was flipped. I'm like, Tufts didn't do this. And they did. And it's like, man. So, you see Tufts and they're above, Bowdoin. It's like, okay, well, Bowdoin had a good year back with their new head coach. So I think Hamilton, they're in a good spot just because the NESCAC is so wide open. Anybody can win it. I mean, you just need to have a good night. And it's, look, if Wesleyan's the real deal, they're the real deal. It's so wide open just in terms of what's going on this year. The teams just essentially beat each other up, but it's like you're all your records are all middle of the road, but obviously you're better than, some of them are better than that. So it's an interesting conference.
It is. It is. And so with being the fourth seed, tell me, why can Hamilton win this?
I think just because you're in that, I think it just comes down to the matter of the conference is just, it's been so just, I guess, diversified, if you want to call it that, this year. Like nobody has stood out. It's a bad answer because it's more or less like, why can't they? Not like, why will they? It's kind of like, just what's going to stop them from doing it? And the answer is really nothing. It's just if they could play their game, they could win it. Just like the same thing with, I guess, Tufts. I mean, they're ending the season at a 4-game win streak. Okay, Tufts could go out there and beat somebody. It's like, who thought that?
Yeah.
So I look at that, and then you have Trinity. Who knows? They were on a win streak for a bit. I forget what number it got to, but they were winning a lot in a row. And then they fell 2 in a row to Wesleyan to end the year, and Wesleyan took the title, the regular season title. But, I think maybe a team like a Trinity could still get that auto bid and win the conference. If you made me pick, I'd probably go Trinity just because I like the way they end. I mean, obviously not getting swept. That's a bad way to end the year. But just the last half of the season, I think they really just kind of picked it up versus at the start of the year. I think they were below 500 or near it.
Right.
So, like I said, it's kind of more of a case of I think it's someone's conference to lose more than it's somebody's conference to win, just because it's gone. It's been unpredictable the whole way.
Yeah, and you know what? That's what makes it so much fun, though. When there's a chance that anybody could get in, and that puncher's chance, right? Get in and say, hey, you know what? Anything can happen. It makes it so much better. Just because everything about D3 hockey in this tournament, is there anybody that's got a real decided home ice advantage?
I would say if Colby and Bowdoin have to play at all, whoever's home is gonna have. Is that? Let me see. Do you have the bracket actually or not?
Let me see. I can pull it up. So let's see.
I don't have the.
It's Williams. Williams is at Wesleyan. Bowdoin's at Trinity. Tufts is at Amherst, and Colby's at Hamilton.
Okay. All right, I got it right here. Gotcha.
It's not on those notes.
So exactly. See, if I'm using the phone, if I had written, it would have worked. Yeah. But if Colby and Bowdoin meet in the final, I think it'd be Colby. They'd have a massive home ice advantage just because those games go, nuts and they sell out. So I think that would be the biggest. If you had to rank them in general, I think that would be the biggest advantage. If those two teams had to go together, Colby would have the biggest advantage. I mean, I think possibly, maybe Wesley, just because they're kind of on a run. Maybe they can get, you're going to have the school more involved, or just like the fans more involved. So that could kind of get more, I guess, like hyped up. But I think it all kind of that conference possibly evens out, sort of. Obviously, you want to be at home, but I don't. It's not like there's a Utica sitting there where it's like you got to go to the Otter, like at Oswego or Geneseo.
Well, that's why I asked the question, because like with Utica, it's such a decided home advantage, like we were talking about with the women's end with Nazareth too. So I mean, that's kind of where I was going with that. But I will say that
the biggest is Colby and Bowdoin. Like I said, no matter if those two have to play, whatever building it's in, it's going to sell out and it's going to be a good time, just because that rivalry goes back. So, but otherwise, I don't think there's a huge decisive, crowd advantage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I will say that if it's cold out, Hamilton's got a huge advantage because it gets really cold in Sage Rink. I love it because it's so historic, but man, when it's really cold out, like
same with Hobart.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Wow, we are moving through this here. All right, we're making good progress. Dave's happy. Look at him, he's over there smiling.
I won't have to nap.
Jeez, we're just doing so good.
Yep.
So let's move on to the SUNYAC. We're going to start with the men's side. So the number 14 Oswego State Lakers men's. Let's see, record overall. They are 16-8-1 in the conference. They're 12-4-0. They're the number 1 seed in the tournament. Goals per game, 3.8. Goals against per game, 2.5. The power play is at 21.1%. The penalty kill is at 80%. They have a first round bye, and we don't know who they're going to be playing in the semifinals just yet. So what's going on up there in Oswego?
I think it's interesting. I mean, because it depends what team shows up. So they didn't really know whoever won this conference didn't win it. It's just other teams lost it. So if Plattsburgh were to have won it, it's because Oswego lost it. I think it was like a 2 or 3 game lead, midway through the season. Obviously, as the season goes on, stuff like that could change. But I mean, they had a massive lead on everybody. They choked it away. Plattsburgh gets the lead. They fall to Buffalo State. They lose to SUNYAC, and Oswego wins. It's like, obviously Oswego would start off great, but they hadn't showed any real consistency. Plattsburgh, same thing. They started off kind of rough. Then they start playing really, really good. Then they drop they lose with Potsdam. Then they lose with Buffalo State. It's like, what's going on? And Geneseo, they've shown they can beat. Geneseo could still beat anybody. Like, it wouldn't shock me at all if Geneseo wins the tournament. It's just can they string it together for 3 games now that they have to play on a Wednesday, which I don't think they've had to do in the past 6 years.
Right.
I think they've won the thing the last 4 times. So, it all depends with them. It wouldn't shock me at all if Cortland goes and beats Oswego and beats if they beat Buffalo State. It wouldn't shock me at all, just because Cortland's playing great. I mean, funny enough, they have the same record as Oswego. I don't think a lot realize that. So Cortland, they're playing great. If Luka can play good in net, which he has, they got to win there earlier in the year. That team, my only issue with Cortland is, can they string it together for 3 games? I don't know. I think they can get past Buffalo State, and I think they can upset Oswego. But then it's, can they do it again against the Plattsburgh or Geneseo? Most likely, I don't know.
Right.
But it's a weird. This is one of the most interesting, because genuinely any of them can win it, because nobody's been consistent enough to be like, this is the runaway team.
Right. And you know what? It looks like there's just parity up and down the board in this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it's intriguing, because you look and you kind of think of some of the options that could happen of who wants what. But if you were to see, hypothetically, let's say Geneseo and Cortland win, and then Geneseo moves to the final. If Cortland goes to the final with Geneseo's only beat them once in the past 3 years. So, whatever kind of fun that is. So it's like Cortland could steal it, which I would personally love, because it'd be, one, I like Cortland, but 2, it'd be hilarious. It's just like, this team nobody would think would do it, and they do it. But it'll be an interesting time. I think home ice is the biggest thing here. That's where I would lean Oswego a lot, just because I think home ice is going to be one of the biggest factors, especially because 3 of the teams in this conference have 3 of the biggest home ice advantages in D3. So sure. I think that'll play a huge role.
So what are some of the strengths of the Oswego team?
Oswego, though, usually it seems as though they kind of, when they're playing really good, they'll probably come out at 150%. In terms of effort, and they'll try to get it. If you can kind of weather the storm, it seems, from what they've been doing, you kind of weather the storm for the first 4 to maybe 6 minutes. If you can get through that, they'll kind of slow back down and play their normal game. But if they come out at 150% and you're not ready, they can put 2 or 3 on you in the first 6 minutes, and it's pretty much over. That's just, there's that. And then you can't let them get into a rhythm. I think that's any team, but especially with them, they seem to be a really some teams, they're good at scrappy goals. Oswego scores most of their goals by pure, just set plays, setups, just very formatted passing. And it's not, they have their worst games when they're kind of just all over the place and just don't have that kind of system,
a scrambling kind of thing.
Yeah. But that's a game where Cortland would thrive, where it's just kind of that scrambling game. Nobody knows what's, there's no format to it. You're just going. So that's where you can run into issues. But I think with the biggest thing with them, they need to come out fast, and they need to get one. If they can get a goal in the first 5 minutes versus anybody, it's huge, because they could just get that momentum. If they can't get the momentum, they're in trouble. But if they can, they could easily roll through the tournament.
Right. Well, that's going to be very interesting with all those teams being so closely matched. That's going to be one to look forward to for sure. And last but not least, let's go with the new HL. So Oswego State Lakers women. They are, the record is 14-10-1. In the conference, they're 11-6-1. They're the 3 seed in this tournament. Goals per game is 2.8. Goals against per game is 2.1. The power play is at 14%, and the penalty kill is 83.1. First round opponent, they are at Cortland on Saturday. So, thoughts on the Oswego State Lakers women's team?
I think it's interesting. I mean, because they beat Cortland early in the year 2 times in a row by, I think it was like 1-0 and 3-2, something like that, which is I don't think many saw, but Cortland got off to a rough start. So I don't really know if that would kind of prove much now, especially they got one back against Oswego late in the year. So I wouldn't put much stock into the early in the year games when they had lost 2. But I think, obviously losing your assistant coach halfway through the season or 3/4 of the season probably ain't going to help you, being short on the bench. But I think it's just a matter of trying to play their game and kind of just weather the storm of Cortland. I mean, their goaltender's been playing great. They've had a few, I believe one of their players, she set the assist record. So they've got some standout players. It's a very even game because neither team has shown that strong. Cortland's ended the season strong, which is what you want. And Oswego's kind of like, not strong, but not weak. It's kind of been right middle of the road, up and down a little bit.
Consistent.
So, yeah. So I think it'll be an intriguing game. I think it'll be maybe a 1 goal, maybe 2 goal, an empty net type game. I would lean Cortland because it's in Cortland, and I think they've just been playing good. Again, the whole after that first quarter of the year, I think they've really just played well. Like Plattsburgh, they only lost by 1 goal, I believe, in each of their games, or the second one might have been 2, with an empty net or something. So Cortland's a strong team, and they're right on the border of that at-large bid as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and Plattsburgh finished with the number 1 seed in the conference, of course. Actually, they won the conference by a pretty big margin, by 6 points over Cortland. But, is there something in particular that Oswego can do to take this tournament?
They've played Plattsburgh close the whole year. It's not like they've gotten handled by Plattsburgh. I think they lost they've lost every game versus them, but it's only been by like 1 goal, maybe 2. There hasn't really been there hasn't been a game where Plattsburgh's just blowing them out the water. So I think you've got that going for you. I just think, again, you run into the issue. Plattsburgh's won the tournament every year. The league's been established. It's Plattsburgh. I think they have one of the best rosters, if not the best, in D3, the way it's operating. They're just solid. You don't really have that kind of standout player. Everybody is just like, obviously, if you're a fan of Plattsburgh, you probably think that. But just from like a stats perspective, everybody is just very good. And their stats are just very kind of, everybody has a lot. There's not like a few lines with a ton and then it kind of drops off. Everybody's contributing well. And I think that's what makes them good. And I don't know if there's something I could say where where Oswego could. I think they just need to have a lot go right.
Yeah.
They need to get some bounces. I don't know if there's, just with the way Plattsburgh's playing and the strength of that team, I don't know if there's a real like method where you could draw it up and be like, this is going to do it. 'Cause I don't think it will. You just need to have, you need to have your goalie play a good game, get a couple bounces, maybe a cheap goal here or there. And I think that's how you can do it. Other than that, I don't see Plattsburgh losing.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the women's overall, this could be a good year for New York State in the NCAAs. You got Plattsburgh, you got Hamilton, you got Utica. So, and if Oswego can pull an upset, there's another one. So looks like it could be a good year. So,
it's been a great year overall for D3 women's hockey. Writing for UCHC, I've gotten to see a lot of it. It's like in the past few years, before the season started, you could pretty much narrow down like, okay, here's the 3 teams that could win the championship. Like, okay, it's, hypothetically Plattsburgh, Middlebury, and then maybe like Adrian, River Falls, like Augusta. It's like you kind of knew right off the bat pretty much the teams that could possibly win it. And you just didn't have the skill level that was good enough to just sort of, like, the teams outside the top 10 had nearly no shot. The competition level was just so wide. Once you got like past the 10th team or 15th team, it didn't even seem like the same level of hockey. And so now I think, this is probably the best year in terms of evenness, if that's a word, just like because any team can beat anybody. You're seeing, Plattsburgh drop a couple games, Adrian drop a couple games. You've got River Falls up there. Eau Claire's making a little run. Elmira, Hamilton, it's Middlebury. You see anybody can beat anybody. Yeah, which is why it's good. And so I think it kind of works to an advantage of like a Cortland or Oswego where anything can happen just based off of the competition. The skill level is there. It's just a matter of now who's better. It's not like you're going onto the ice and that you don't have a shot like before.
Right. Well, and too, and looking through all these tournaments that we've looked at so far, it's all single game playoffs too. So, you get one bounce here or there, you never know what could happen. There's no best of threes just yet.
No, and this is what I like about the West. Are you aware of the mini game?
The mini game? No, tell me about it.
I learned, so I hadn't seen it up until this year. I had heard about it kind of roughly, but so at the West, so the NCHA and the WIAC, and I believe the MIAC, I'm 99% sure they do it, but if they don't, it's the NCHA and the WIAC for sure. Mm-hmm. So what they do is it's technically a best of 3, but you play 2 games. So you play, hypothetically, let's say it's Plattsburgh and Oswego. Oswego wins game 1, right? The second game, and then the second game that's going to be played in the other building. So then you go to the other building. Okay. Let's say Plattsburgh. No, so then Plattsburgh would beat Oswego. So now it's 1-1 in the series. So now what they're going to do is you take a 15-minute intermission, and you now put the game at 0, and you play a period.
Whoa.
Yeah, and you could take guys out of the stands if you want. It's a whole new game. Yeah.
No way.
No, it's a whole new game. So like back in the day, from what I was
sounds like a beer league.
When I was talking to the Stevens Point broadcasters, they were like, yeah, so occasionally some teams would sit some guys if they had won game 1. They'd sit a guy or two, and then who was really good, and then bring him in if they needed him in the mini game, so he's fresh.
Wow.
Yeah. So you have
it's that actually.
Split. Now, obviously, if you win 2-0, you're not going to have that, but
right.
We had that, and so we saw last weekend it was with Northland and Superior, and then Lake Forest and Aurora. I was watching it because I hadn't seen it before. They went to the mini game, and like you could change your goalie, you could bring guy out of the stands, you could scratch a player because it's a whole new game. It's just 20 minutes,
awesome.
And then if you're still tied after that, then you play normal playoff overtime. You go until somebody scores.
That is
but
all,
you can, but. Yeah, and just because you score in the period doesn't mean it's over. So, like, you can go up 3-0, the other team ties it at 3. You're going to another sudden death overtime. That's just a full, it's a one-period game. Yeah.
That's so cool. That's almost like a mode in like a video game. That's awesome.
Exactly. That's what I thought.
I love it.
And it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That's really cool. RJ Grimshaw just said he believes that the SUNYAC used to have that.
I think they're out east used to do it. I believe. I don't know the years, but I know that it used to be a thing in certain leagues. So it wouldn't shock me if the SUNYAC was one of them. I assume it was. Because I was told that out east used to, and then they went away with it. I don't know why, but yeah, I know that in the past it was it was used not just out west. But I thought it was cool. I mean, and also another thing is like a fan perspective, like you're just getting free. You're getting free sudden death hockey for like, let's say this thing goes on. Your mini game ends, another intermission, you're playing another sudden death overtime. It just makes for a fun night, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. That really is fun. And it's different. That's what I like. Always got to have something a little different just to kind of keep things interesting. That's great. Well, my man, this has been awesome. Like I said, you were the first person I thought of when we were talking about an overall tournament preview here, because you are, in my eyes, the running expert on D3 hockey, of course. So tell me, where are we going to find you on social media, and where are we going to find all your work?
It's a pretty extravagant name. It's D3 Hockey News. It's original, I know. It's D, then 3 I's, and then Hockey News on Twitter and Instagram. And then in the bios there's a link tree or the link to anything on there, like the podcast and stuff. That's at Spotify. It's D3 Hockey News podcast, but that's actually D with a 3. But it's kind of hard to find, so just go to the link tree, and it's easy to find there just for the podcast link. But no, we're seeing where it goes. This year's been, it gets better every year just because as the accounts grow and everything, and I start expanding what I'm doing, it just becomes more fun. And obviously, when you have more people involved with something like this, that makes it even more fun. So no, looking forward to see where it goes. And it's been a good. It kind of sucks to see it end, if I'm being honest, because you're looking forward to the Frozen 4, that it's kind of like, oh crap, all right, it's over. Like, now what do I? That's why I started the podcast. I was like, what do I do now? I'm like, I'm nothing for a couple months. And so then I did that, and it killed the time. So in terms of the D3.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you though, the podcast and the full 60 are absolutely awesome, and they really are.
Yeah. The full 60, the Frozen Four one's going to be interesting. If it's in the odd for whatever, if it is in the odd with whatever logistics go on, or if they get the seed, the lighting will be an issue, but we'll make it work. But no, it's that's been fun just because kind of with the response, like I said, the players are real into it. Like the parents enjoy it. That's another thing. Like parents reaching out and stuff. Like they, because again, they kind of get like a whole highlight reel of their kid's game. Like you don't, a lot of the times you don't get that. So,
sure.
Like it was actually a Mooresville parent. I saw the last name because he liked and retweeted a lot of my stuff. So I saw his son on the bench. I'm like, hey John, take a photo of him. And he took a photo of the back of his jersey and then I sent it to him. And he was like, thanks, whatever. I'm like, yeah, because you're retweeting, you like it stuff. Like, I remember names. So, like, if you do that and I see a name, it's like, oh, okay, get a photo of that, send it to them, whatever. But no, the parents like the videos as well, just because, like I said, it's kind of a highlight film. And
right.
No,
Absolutely.
but it's been fun. That's a fun aspect that I had. I said to John, I'm like, look, this is your deal. It's not mine. I don't know anything about it. If I did it, it'd be crap. Like, if you want to do it, you do it. And I'm all in for it, but that's your gig. And
yeah.
like, okay.
I would be the same way if we tried something like that, because you know what? I would be running around the phone and be bouncing all over the place. That's why we got Dave around. Dave's got, you should see the equipment this guy's got. It's unbelievable. We were down in Cooperstown this weekend, and we got a great story coming up in segment 2 about some of his equipment. It's just, let's put it this way. It involves that show When Animals Attack. And But, real quick before you go, we had mentioned the odd with the Final Four. Boy, I tell you, if they could work that out, and if it ever did happen, that would be amazing. I know the Comets are in town that weekend, and there's a big junior tournament, I guess, going on. But, man, that'd be so cool.
I mean, I love Gary Heaton and Nick Therian, but Heaton's I wouldn't want to be within a mile of his office if he gets the call that it's denied, because you're not going to like it. He's not. I mean, it's obvious. You ask any Utica fan, they'd have to be blind or deaf to think that this guy's not going to blow one of the biggest gaskets in D3. Which, no, fair play to him. I'd be pissed too. I'm not. Yeah, I would be mad as well. I don't blame the guy. I'm just saying he's not exactly the calmest of people when something like that happens. So
that's where the video skills come in.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see. But no, I hope that, like I said, and the thing is, it's not necessarily like I'm saying, if you really ask me, I'd prefer to go somewhere else, just because if I get to take a trip, I'd rather go somewhere where I'd normally not go. So it's not like I'd be real down, but that's just from my perspective. Like, if you host if I was the number 1 seed, I'd want to host this thing. Like, sure. I earned home ice. Why should somebody below me get to host it? So no, I get all the sides of it. Right. It's one of those things where it's like, and look, this is no fault to them, but it's like, look, yeah, you're bringing in a ton of money, but I guess this is where it can kind of collide in terms of like, well, maybe you're looking down the schedule here and you're thinking, well, if we get to host this Frozen Four and, but we've got this 38 team, whatever scheduled, for that weekend, or you've got, the AHL games, it's kind of like, I would kind of think of that and possibly try to work around it. But again, it's one of those things where you can't, it's so unpredictable where it's like, what are you going to do? And what sucks is Utica would sell the place out with fans themselves versus now you're going to allot tickets to everybody. But still, it's going to, the place would be nuts. It'd be one of the best Frozen Four atmospheres that ever would occur, just because you have that market.
Jordy Fire, Angry Gary is a scary version of Gary. Oh,
I haven't had to see it, but I'm just going to assume
the legend is around though. That's
that like I said, that'll awesome. Be he's one of that committee. He's one of the last people that committee would want to have to deal with. Again, no fault to him. I'm completely on his side of this. I'm just saying he's one of the last people that you'd want to have to deal with. If you're going to tell some guy, hey, you're the 1 seed, you have the best facility in D3, you can't host it.
Yeah, sorry, you got to go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's go over that's all I'm going to say with that.
Oh, boy.
You don't want to deal with him.
Oh, boy. Well, time will tell, my friend.
For sure.
I'll keep you updated if we hear anything around. That's if there's any.
Yeah, I've gotten some murmurs. I mean, talking to some coaches, they're like, well, these teams can't host this team. I mean, I'll give some insight, I guess, here. So, like, Endicott is not allowed to host from what I've been told. Curry's not allowed to host. Hobart's not allowed to host. So, hypothetically, Adrian is kind of like a wild card in terms of hosting. Like, they don't want it, but they hosted the Women's Frozen Four, so they could probably make it work. The only issue there is there's 500 seats, 1,000 standing.
Right.
And you'd have to cut the attendance rule in half. But the issue is Adrian has great facilities, great everything that you can, if you can fit standing room, it's like, okay, they could probably make it work. But let's just say if there's a team like, say, a Plattsburgh or a Oswego or a Geneseo or makes it to the Frozen Four, they're probably going to host it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
if that's assuming Utica can't and they don't make it to the Frozen Four. If Utica makes it, well, again, Heated's going to he'll play the games at 3 a.m. if he has to.
Right.
But,
right.
Whatever they could do, if they could make it work, it's going to happen. Whatever that logistical issue has to, be resolved.
And, with 3 sheet ice at the Nexus, they can, with the other tournament they got going on, they can move that. I mean, there's ways around it, I guess. It's just,
and the issue,
you're
like, they
going to have to ask
play
the Comets to move their game, and that's. Yeah. So,
and the thing with them is you can't play. They couldn't host the Frozen Four, the Nexus, because you need to play 50% of your home games in that. So, yeah, you would need. I mean, I think the junior tournament is it. I guess maybe the issue. I think it's possibly like. Again, you're under the hotel issue. It's like there's a lot that's gotta, and especially with Utica, you need the hotel. That's.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe they can make a thing. They've got Turning Stone down the road. I think you might be able to make a compromise.
There's more hotels in the area than you think. But I mean, if you got 38 teams coming in for a team or a tournament at the Nexus, of course you got to figure, like practice times and all that too, for the teams that are, at the Frozen Four. So there's a lot of logistics at play, for sure. And like we just said, the Comets would have to be willing to move their game, and the AHL would have to sign off on that too. It's not just the Comets, the AHL would have to approve, and so obviously there's hoops to jump through. But you're right. I think if there's any possible way to make it work, they'll make it work one way or another.
Well, I mean, like I said, if you want an advocate, Gary Heenan's probably one of the best ones you're going to get, because if he will go through every avenue possible. So you're in a good situation there in terms of somebody fighting for the right, if you want to call it that. But, no, so I think, like I said, my thing is I wouldn't mind a trip, but if Utica should be allowed to host, they should be allowed to host. I mean, if they're the number 1 seed, I think it'd be kind of, especially that arena, I just think it'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'd prefer if they had some spotlights in there, but besides that, I think it'd be a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. We all talk about that too. It's like, man, especially since they built the Nexus Center, it's so much brighter over there. It's like, oh, that's what was missing.
That's what we noticed the first time when we walked over there, because they're like, oh, just go down the hallway through whatever, and you can see the new center. So I went down there, and it's like, you go in, it's like a whole new, I mean, obviously it's a new, I mean, I get that, but I'm saying it's like, you go in and it's just like, it's bright and it's cold. Like the Odd kind of has like a warm and kind of, dark vibe to it. And then you go to the Nexus, it's like cold and bright. And
whole new world. But
exactly.
But we'll see what happens. But anyways, Chris, thank you so much for your time and coming on and talking about all these tournaments with us. We really appreciate it, man. And I'll tell you, your Twitter is awesome. If you want, you got to follow Chris on Twitter if you want to keep up the news on D3, because he's got it all going on. He's got some pretty cool graphic brackets going on too, right?
Yeah. So that was actually Scott Huston. I'll get his name in there. He's from I believe he graduated from Gustavus. So he had sent me a DM one day and he was like, hey, I do these like spreadsheets for like D3. I'm like, oh, okay. What are they? And so he's like, well, I'll email them to you. So he emails them to me, and it's like every single team in the country. And then he lists off their, like, how like do like for college basketball, like quad 1 to quad 4 wins.
Mm-hmm.
So he has like every single team with the quad wins. He has the conference, records, all the stats. And he's got like a bunch of stuff. I'm like, what do you do? I'm like, do you work for somebody? He's like, no, I just do it for fun. I'm like, oh, okay. And he's like, well, if you want him, I keep sending to him. Like, yeah, especially because like I was covering the women's game the whole year. For the most part with USCHO. So I'm like, yeah, of course I'll take it. And then he made the graphics. I'm like, he's like, you can do whatever you want with these. But I'm like, well, I'll tag it. And I'm like, so I posted them, and then he tagged them, and then he made some men's ones. So they'll be up tomorrow.
Sweet.
When I throw those up. So, but yeah, no, that was kind of just out of the blue. He'd sent a DM. We started talking. He's like, well, I do these spreadsheets. I'm like, what are those? And he sent them over. And like I said, it's every single team in the country for women, for D3 women, with all their stats and all the quad one wins and all the math. And like,
wow,
he'd update it weekly. Like, this is assuming the top seed in the conference would win, but it would be like what the tournament would be right now and where it would be played and what the seeding would be. And so I'm like, it's good. I mean, he's a good resource to have. I'll give him that.
Boy, I guess so.
But, yeah. So I just met him a few weeks ago.
And he does that all that for fun.
Yeah. He just said he's real into hockey. I'm like, well, same. So, all right.
Okay. Hey, take it when you can get it, right?
So, I mean, yeah, I was just shocked because it was like, even my friend I sent over to John, he was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then he sent another message. He's like, holy crap. He used a different word, but I'll say that. Because he didn't click the sidebar that then he saw like 5 leagues, but then he clicked the sidebar and he saw every single team. And he's like, oh, like, he just saw like a quarter of it. And he's like, oh, so yeah, this is impressive. I'm like, yeah,
it's awesome. Well, I can tell you what, we're going to be retweeting that on ours. So
yeah, it's like I said, I appreciate it. I try to share your stuff when I can, when it's relation. I'll have you on the podcast at some point. Just probably
absolutely.
We got to figure that out, but we'll make it happen.
I'd love to come on, man. It'd be a great time. So
of course.
But like I said, thank you so much for coming on, and we really appreciate it. And of course, I'll be in touch.
No problem. Keep in touch. And like I said, my setup's a little less than this. It's not going to be live. It's going to be pretty much done via Zoom, just audio only. So if you can mind the balling on a budget here, but
nope, not a problem at all.
We do all right.
Absolutely. But Chris, thanks again. I appreciate it, and we will talk soon.
Same to you. Thanks for having me on. And
all right, buddy.
And see you, Dave. Have a good one.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Take care. That was Chris Sugar from the D3 Hockey News. It's always so much fun when he's on.
Oh yeah,
because he really is. He's like the D3 Hockey Encyclopedia. Or Google, I guess, in modern, because encyclopedias were paper. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're back to paper again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we take a break since I've done so much talking here? I need some water. And when we come back, we're going to continue on with segment 2. We'll be right back.
Visit My Little Falls and stay connected with the latest news, information, and events in the city and the area. Our mission is to generate interest in the community and connect residents in a more meaningful way by facilitating deeper conversations about how these stories will shape the future of the Mohawk Valley. Join thousands of weekly visitors who stay up to date with feature stories, interviews, videos, our event calendar, and print publication, the Mohawk Valley Express. It's about timely local news for the community, keeping citizens informed about important issues, telling about the people who live and work here, and giving locally owned businesses the opportunity to reach a very targeted audience of locals and tourists alike. It's a whole new form of media-rich content developed specifically for today's mobile lifestyle and listeners. You can download our iOS app in the iTunes store, listen to our country music streaming radio station, or sign up for a weekly newsletter. Stop by today at mylittlefalls.com. You'll be glad you did.
All right, and we are back with segment 2. Dave, we had a pretty busy weekend this last weekend.
Yes, we did.
I mean, of course, it's the busy time of year anyway. Like I said, it's the most wonderful time of year, right?
Yeah.
But, all kinds of hockey going on, including you and I were down in Cooperstown this weekend on Saturday.
We were having fun.
Yeah, remember a couple weeks ago we had Barry Shelley on.
Yes,
we
did.
The New Jersey Warriors, and that weekend finally came to fruition.
Are we going to talk about the attack of the pigeons or what?
I think we're going to have to talk about that because
that was too funny.
Yeah, Barry had the Warriors up this weekend, and it was unfortunate they couldn't play the ice hockey game because we got this unusually warm weather, of course, this past week naturally. But you know what? It all worked out. We got to play some street hockey down there at Badger Park. He had one heck of a dinner for him on Friday night. Raised over $1,000.
Yeah, nice.
The auction you did there, and then of course we all went to the Comets game. So I was down there mingling, chatting, and we've even got a story out about it on 315hockey.com and My Little Falls. You were there with your awesome photography skills, but we don't get any video. And so tell us why, Dave.
Well, we had the attack of the pigeons. So people don't know you when you're flying a drone. So I wanted kind of like an opening shot, right? Where you kind of come over the Badger Park there,
Yeah.
you know, come over the CVS and you see Badger Park there. And Deborah spots for me because she's actually the Part 107 licensed pilot, but I do the flying, right?
Okay.
You probably don't know that.
Shh. Well, you just
Well,
got
no,
yourself in
that's-
trouble now.
No,
Way to
no,
go.
that's totally legal. That's the way
Okay.
you do it, right? I mean, you know, you typically have somebody spot. So she's spotting, she says birds. So I see these birds real quick, and I didn't think anything of it. I'm thinking, you know, some starlings or something starting to move. No, pigeons. Pigeons are bad. They're like the worst. They go after drones in a flock like you wouldn't believe. They'll hit the damn thing, and they're hard to get away from. I had to pull that thing down so quick. I was like, I mean, they were swarming. Then they sat on the wires waiting for me to put it back up again. I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is
I
nuts.
wish you had come over and got me for that.
You weren't there yet. You were close.
Oh, okay.
You hadn't got there yet. I was trying to do that establishing shot. I thought, you know what? If I can't even get that, I'm going to go with still images. And I just went with shooting the game and the fun.
Oh my goodness. All I'm thinking of is Angry Birds.
Oh my God.
That's all I'm thinking of.
They were nuts. I've got some other footage where they were literally right in front of the lens in Herkimer. I mean, just about took the drone out of the air. You know, that's you know, that's a few bucks there.
Just a
If I
couple.
knock that thing down. You know, one dead pigeon equals $1. That
Jeez.
drone is, you know, $1,500.
My
No.
I really thought you were joking when you told me that
I was
story.
not joking at all. No.
I really thought so.
And I looked at the footage I did take, and I didn't capture them coming in front. They were a little bit above it at first.
That would have been even better.
I would have shown that clip. I would have run that. So yeah, for you.
But you know what we do? We got a ton of pictures from that Badger Park there. Like I said, they're in the article. And by the way, I got this really cool shirt.
Yep. You can see the
There.
shirt there, the New Jersey Warriors shirt that they had.
And
It's awesome.
you can go to njwarriors.org. Actually, if you want to put that graphic up and type it in real quick there, we'll run across
Oh,
the
you
banner.
want me to type it in real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. So that, we can get some support out there for the Warriors. We went to a Comets game afterwards, and that was really cool too. We all sat together there, and I'll tell you, Barry did just one heck of a job for that entire weekend, putting it all together, and it was such a good time. It really was.
It was.
So congratulations, Barry, and I'll tell you what, it was nice to see all the Warriors. That was awesome. So anyways, you know what, Dave? We talked all this D3 hockey. There are a couple of D1 tournaments starting this weekend too.
Really?
Division 1. Yeah. So I'm going to go over those real quick because we don't have a guest to talk about those because, hey, listen, we almost went an hour with D3, so I don't want to keep you up too late tonight. So
Yeah, that or keep me away from the bathroom too long.
well, then I wanted to talk about those Angry Bird pigeons in your drone too.
I
so.
know.
But anyways, the number 3 Colgate Raiders women are starting this weekend, the ECAC tournament. Now that's a little bit different from all the other tournaments we were talking about because they play a best of 3 in the opening round. So their record overall is 28-4-2. Their conference record is 18-3-1. They are the 3 seed in this tournament. Let's see, goals per game, they're scoring 4.1. Goals against per game is 1.6. The power play is at 25.6%, and the PK, penalty kill, is at 89%. Like I said, they're playing Princeton in that first round. That's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. All 3 games are at the Class of 1965 Arena in Hamilton.
Wow. That'll be nice.
I think the Friday night game, I believe, is 6 or 7 o'clock. And then the other 2 games will be, Saturday they'll definitely play. That'll be 3. And then Sunday, I think, is at 3-2 if necessary. That would be if, either team doesn't sweep.
Right.
So just to recap all that real quick. And by the way, you can go to ColgateAthletics.com to get those times for sure. But, Colgate, they got, in my eyes, the best player in the country in Danielle Serdachny. I mean, she's just been amazing. She's the leading point getter in the entire country. Kelty Kaltanova, she is also one of the most dangerous goal scorers, especially on the power play. Just a sniper on that power play. Caitlin O'Donohoe and Dara Gregg. I'm sorry, Dara Gregg. Yes, those 2 are underrated. They kind of fly under the radar because you got Serdachny and Kaltakova who are just between the points and the goal scoring. I'll tell you what though, O'Donohoe and Gregg, if they were on another team, they would probably be the top scorers on the team. But on the blue line, the defense, you got New Hartford native Sydney Bard and Allison Simpson. They are amongst the best defenders in the entire country. The goaltending tandem of Hannah Murphy and Kaylee Osborne, again, among the top in the country. The only problem the Raiders have is that ECAC is a gauntlet, an absolute gauntlet. You got Yale, Quinnipiac, who Mila Lapata has been on the show, plays for. Let's see, Clarkson, Cornell, they're all ranked, and they're all ranked pretty high too. They're all at the top 12, I think, at this point. So whoever gets through that tournament is going to be very battle tested. And it wouldn't surprise me one bit if they see each other again at some point in the NCAAs too, because that is, like I said, it's just a very, very tough conference. For me, the key for Colgate to win this whole thing, got to stay out of the penalty box. The only thing I've seen, and I've watched a lot of their games this year. They're a fast team. When they're on, they're aggressive in the forecheck, very hard to contain, just constant movement. They're great at getting out of their own zone. Every once in a while, they'll take the untimely penalty, which when you're playing tough opponents like this can really come back and bite you. But I'll tell you what, if they stay out of the penalty box, they got just as good a chance to win this tournament as anybody.
So don't be chippy.
Don't be. And no, Dave, you can't bring your drone down to the class of 1965 arena because I'm sure there's pigeons there too.
I could.
Oh boy. And the other tournament I wanted to talk about real quick was the College Hockey America Conference. That's where the Syracuse Orange women's team plays out of. They have an overall record of 10-22-2. Their record in the conference is 6-9-1. They're the 3 seed in this tournament. Now that's a 5-team conference. It's going to go to 6 teams next year when Robert Morris enters, but right now it's a 5-team conference. The top 4 teams make the tournament. So goals per game, they are 2.2. Goals against per game, they're 3.1. Power play is at 15.4%. Penalty kill is at 85.3%. They are at Mercyhurst Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's another best of 3. So that's a little bit of a difference between the Division 1 and Division 3. The opening rounds are best of 3 as opposed to just 1 games, which actually is a benefit to the higher seeded teams. Because when you're playing a 1-game playoff, it doesn't matter if it's a number 1 seed against a number 8 seed. Yes, the number 1 team should blow the number 8 seed out,
but not always.
But that's why you play the games, right? That's why you play the games. So, anything could go wrong, a bad bounce, an untimely, an injury, anything, could really. So, those best of 3 teams definitely favor the top seed. But I'll tell you what, Syracuse, as I said, they're 10-22-2 overall. They had a tough season on paper, right? But they got talent on that team, Dave. They got Laura Bellefontaine, who's been great. Sarah Thompson and Madison Primo also they've had fantastic seasons on offense. Mae Batherson, another one. She's having a great season on offense from the blue line. Tatum White is one of the best in the country at faceoffs. And Ariel DeSmet is one of the best goaltenders in the CHA. So, really, I mean, they've had some bad breaks, and again, it's one of those, sometimes the puck doesn't go your way. Things happen, whatever. But to me, the Orange kind of feel like they're one of those teams that could surprise. Mm-hmm. All right. So their opponent, the Mercyhurst Lakers, they're 0-3-1 against them this season. Okay. But you know what? You know how hard it is to beat a team, that consistently throughout the year, and especially once you get into the playoff time. So, you know what? Don't be surprised if the Orange pull off an upset here. And I'm not just saying this because they're in our coverage area. I'm serious. I am serious. The talent.
You're not trying to suck up right now.
No. I'm being serious.
Thought there was some sucking up going on, but
no, not at all. I'm saying if things can go their way, it's an uphill climb. It is. Don't get me wrong, because once you get if they get past Mercyhurst, most likely they're going to be playing Penn State, and they're number 12, and they're good. They're a really good team, and the Orange had some trouble with them this year too. But again, if you look at their schedule, they played a lot of tough teams this year too, which also contributed to that overall mark. So, like I said, don't be surprised if
I won't be.
Yeah.
Surprise me though.
Just keep your drone home.
Yeah, really. Barry's still talking about that weekend.
Let's see. What's he got to say?
Evidently I missed a war wound here.
He did too.
I missed the fight too.
Yeah, you missed the fight.
Yep.
You know what? Barry got in the net. He didn't put any pads on.
Well, I had pictures of him in the net.
Yeah, but and he didn't have any pads. Did you notice?
No, I noticed.
Yeah.
He didn't have any mask on either.
Somebody rifled one at him, and we were in the street. Those are hard.
Those, oh my God.
Those are not hard. Soft.
No, I know. Yeah, they were pretty good.
That's Barry, it was our pleasure. I mean, that was, we're actually, you know what? I'm not only glad, I'm honored to have been a part of all that.
Yeah, it was fun.
Because it really was. And, like I said, I talked to Ted and Mark. They want to come back on the show, and it's, I can't wait to have them on because, like I said, what a fantastic organization. They really are. No doubt about it. So I just want to close real quick too with the Colgate men. So all these teams that we cover, right? The Colgate men are still playing the regular season, Dave. So
Ooh.
they've got one more weekend of
game?
games.
Oh,
Two more this
more
weekend.
games.
Yep,
All
they're
right.
they're at Yale and they're at Brown. I'm going to get into them a little bit more next week, but Colgate is actually sitting number 4 in the ECAC. So like the women, they play in the
Right.
ECAC conference, right? And the way their playoffs are set up, it's very important to get into that top 4. And you know what? Before I give it all away, I think I feel an article brewing about it.
Oh, geez.
I think I'm going to write an article about it, and I think I'm going to put it on 315hockey.com.
I like that.
So a little cliffhanger for everybody.
Yeah, make everybody go there.
Yeah, make everybody wait.
Yep.
And everybody's going, yeah, okay.
Yeah. pull the ringer from the stands.
Yeah. I'm telling you, that's a great
That was
idea.
good stuff.
I liked it. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, they got a couple more games this weekend, and we'll see how it plays out. But they're going to be in the ECAC tournament regardless. And you know what? Another team that could surprise a lot of people. So, anyways, Dave, I think that's it. I think that's all we got. So once again, I want to thank Chris Sugar from the D3 Hockey News for coming on. I hope everybody enjoys all the tournaments we got coming up this weekend because it's going to be a real fun weekend of hockey. So anyways, for Dave the Save Warner, I'm Scott Kimball. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week on 315 Hockey Live.